Well, hello, coming at you from Platte City, Missouri. Here, September 2021. Karen and I are camped at the Basswood RV Resort. We have, our friends know that I retired from the sheriff's office in 2019. Karen and I had planned for years to tour the United States, and the most affordable way to do that was in an RV. We've always enjoyed camping and RVing, so it made sense, and we stuck some of our possessions in storage and took off. And that was a little over 2 years ago, and we're still at it. Our summer trip this year began in central Michigan. We had worked our way up from St. Augustine, Florida. We went north from central Michigan after visiting Karen's family to Traverse City to see some friends, and we went to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and went west from there, which would be Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota. Stopped at Roosevelt National Park, Hidden Gem. Then went on a little further west to Montana, and then turned south following the east side of the Bighorn Mountains down to Wyoming, and hundreds of miles of beautiful scenery. It's like being in the national park the whole time. It's just extraordinary. When we come back, one of the ways we like to travel east from there is on US 36 highway that runs basically from the Denver area all the way to St. Joseph, Missouri. That's the Pony Express route. And then later on it became a primary route for stagecoaches. Well, this year we went ahead and cut down from US 36 to Abilene, or Hays, Kansas, and then east on I-70 to Abilene, Kansas. Our primary reason for that was to visit the Dwight Eisenhower Museum. It's a presidential library, museum, boyhood home, and burial site are located in the downtown area of Abilene. Also in that area of Abilene, they're scattered around the Dwight Eisenhower facility or other great places to visit, among which was the Dickinson County Museum, which Karen, it has our vote, Karen and my vote, for the best county museum we visited so far in the 22 states we've been in. It's extraordinary, and there's something there for everyone to do. They even have a carousel that's a historic landmark where kids can ride on it, little horses, wood horses. They have a town that they brought buildings in to go through. If you're into farming equipment, old tractors, old cars, huge blacksmiths, school building, grocery, everything's right there. But the thing I was most interested in was the Brown Telephone Company Museum, or display that's at the Greater Telephone Museum, located within the same facility of the Dickinson County Museum. And friends, I retired from the sheriff's office in 2019, but when I was younger, I worked for corporate security for a company that started as Brown Telephone Company and eventually became Sprint. And so I wanted to record that telephone museum and the Sprint section of it, mostly for my friends from Sprint, so they can see what it has to offer. That's ancient communications there, and basically horseback information getting passed along. Telegraph. Alexander Graham Bell. early phone components. The first commercial telephones. Mechanical phones. This is absolutely nuts. This thing is really, this museum is so cool. I should say also up in the front part of the museum, it does have a beginning around the age of the woolly mammoth forward through the pioneer days, including Wild Bill Hickok having been the marshal here in Abilene. All of that's a separate section, although attached to the museum, and then they have buildings outside that they've brought into the area. This is just happens to be an added bonus. History of the telephone. 1918, 1927, 1940, 56, 68. It's a 1906 switchboard. Telephone office, United Utilities. Talk about that a little bit later. United Utilities Systems. The last magneto SWB Southwestern Bell in operation in Kansas, January 1977. Thought this was kind of cool. This is like a small phone switch, looks like to me. Switchboard. Those are what most of us are used to seeing in the old days. Now, for the people I know from Sprint, long story there, I worked corporate securities for Sprint and then worked my way up as a manager. And before I left to become a full-time policeman. But, so I actually, when I started at corporate headquarters in security, corporate security, early 1980s, I knew about Brown telephones. It's part of the folklore there. This is Mr. Brown. Started the local phone company, 1911. 1925, United Utilities, they changed the name of it. More modern. There's Paul Henson, absolute gentleman and a scholar. I knew him and Betty Henson from working corporate security. Bill Esri, I knew him and Julie when I worked corporate security and times thereafter. There's Paul as a young guy. 62, the company began urging employees to sell more telephone services and expanding. Henson started working in late, I think 59. And then how they grew the company into what became Sprint is they would fly around, Henson and the chief pilot would fly around and buy up smaller phone companies that were part of these independent phone companies like Brown had started, and then they built it into a United Telephone, multiple states. The chief pilot at United Telecom, aka Sprint, would tell me that with the first plane they had, Paul, who apparently was a pilot in World War II, I believe he was an engineer, but they would take turns because it was so cold outside. One of them would stand outside and spin the prop, the other would be in the aircraft starting it, and they'd switch off positions. And Henson would learn about a local phone company that was ready to sell, and they'd fly in and get first dibs at it and buy it before the competition could show up. And that continued too. The Sprint's acquisition people were really top notch, and they would get out there and buy these companies up, part of the heritage.